All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating piece of source material that is literally all over the map, in the best way possible. It takes us from an incredibly turbulent airplane cabin straight down into the literal underworld and then rockets us right back up into the heavens. It's a total masterclass in the chaotic, dream logic brilliance of internet folklore, and we are going to break it all down. Here is our roadmap for this chaotic journey. First, an arrival in Tooth Cavity, followed by a heavy metal bus ride, checking into the Hotel of Doom, escaping the catacombs, and finally, witnessing a divine deliverance. Let's get into it.
Part 1. Welcome to Tooth Cavity, Turbulence and Terror in the Sky. So, we kick things off way up in the sky, right in the middle of a violently turbulent flight. We've got our completely ordinary passengers, Toivo, Elisa, and the deeply phobic Tom, and they are heading straight for a place ominously named Tooth Cavity. It's a mountain fjord village, and it literally gets its name from these incredibly sharp mountain peaks that just jut out into the sky, reaching over kilometers in height. Honestly, the geography itself sounds like a giant monster just waiting to chew them up. And the second they enter its airspace, things go off the rails. You've gotta love the absurd contrast they throw at us right from the jump. On one side of the cabin, you have this passenger, Tony, busting out some wild sci-fi gear. We're talking a detachable gold tooth that doubles as a computer part, plus these crazy 3D ghost-detecting hologram glasses. But then on the other side, Tom is staring out the window at ancient, literal gothic horror. He's seeing a bloody skull swarming with black spiders and worms. It's this brilliant, chaotic mashup of cyberpunk espionage and pure gothic nightmare.
And the pacing here, it is absolutely relentless. It goes exactly like this. First, that crazy skull attack up in the sky. Then, they land at this mist-shrouded Big Bear Airport where the flight crew magically vanishes into thin air. Next thing you know, they're forced onto bus 666, yeah, you heard that right, which plunges them further into the nightmare until they finally reach their destination, the Hotel of Doom.
Which brings us to Part 2, a heavy metal bus ride. The journey to darkness begins. So the mist rolls in at Big Bear Airport, and this absolutely impossible demonic vehicle pulls up for the surviving, very confused passengers. This quote perfectly captures the deadpan, bizarre humor of this whole world. One unnamed passenger takes a single look at this black bus labeled 666 and just flat out says, "I will not step into that heavy metal bus." They walk off into the mist and boom, they're instantly eaten with a loud crunch. It's kind of the universe's way of saying, you better stay on the ride, no matter how terrifying it gets.
Because let's be real, the bus itself is a living nightmare. The seats are black leather, but there is literally something moving underneath them. The only light comes from these extinguished sooty black lanterns. And the partition separating the driver from the passengers, it's a rippling wall of black water. And it gets worse. The bus makes a pit stop at the Temple of the Black Tooth, where this bony figure reaches right through that liquid wall, drags screaming tourists out, and tosses them into a flaming maw as a sacrifice. The world building here is just intensely terrifying. Moving into Part 3, the Hotel of Doom, Rooms of Terror. So this nightmare bus finally dumps our traumatized survivors in front of a pitch-black, 4-story building, very appropriately named the Hotel of Doom. And the moment they arrive, the hotel starts isolating them. There's no friendly receptionist. Instead, they're greeted by a sick-looking woman with pitch-black eyes, and the characters actually hear their room assignments whispered telepathically right into their minds. Tivo and Elisa in room 7, Tony in 6, Tom in 8, and the youth in 0. It is a classic divide-and-conquer horror trope executed perfectly. The second they get to their rooms, all hell breaks loose simultaneously. In room 6, Tony is literally being dragged backward out of a broken window by a werewolf. Meanwhile, Toivo and Elisa are tearing through room 7 in a total panic. They uncover a key carved from a finger bone with a black pearl on it, the word flee just scrawled in soot on the wall, and this incredibly creepy painting of a bloody fountain. When they move the painting, it reveals a hidden keyhole and a door frame that actually starts bleeding red liquid. Right in the middle of this frantic search, they find a letter shoved under their door. It's from Tom, their heavily phobic friend from the flight. The letter has this simple, blood-written clue that points to the attic. And simultaneously, from his room right next door, they can hear his voice just whimpering this chilling phrase, "Leave me alone." Part 4, Escaping the Catacombs, Descent into the Underworld. So, Toivo and Elisa open that bleeding hidden door and head up a dark, spider-webbed staircase into the attic. And this is where Toivo just goes full pulp action hero. They find dozens of coffins filled with waking vampires and transforming werewolves, and he does not even hesitate. Step 1, he sprays lighter fluid directly into the open coffins. Step 2, he yells at Elisa to make a run for the rusty service elevator. And step 3, he just hurls a lit candelabra and ignites the entire room. They take that rusty elevator down, and the environment just aggressively shifts on them. They go from this massive catacomb with a bubbling acid pond and bodies stuffed into the walls, straight into the ritualistic, sacrificial horror of an underground temple. The imagery here is absolute sensory overload. Hexagrams made of candles, literal rivers of blood flowing out of a giant skull, and a ceiling covered in impaled bodies that are raining blood down on them. To survive this absolute madness, Toivo goes on the offensive again. He spots these red-hooded villagers in canoes on the blood rivers, actively feeding live humans to underground demon gods. So when one of these villagers is isolated, Toivo sneaks up, cracks a grotesque gargoyle statue right over the guy's head, and hijacks his blood-spluttered canoe. He paddles them through a dark tunnel until they finally pop out into a moonlit spruce forest. It feels exactly like trying to survive a brutal level transition in a dark fantasy video game, just constantly adapting to new terrors. And then the story basically turns into a medieval action movie. Just look at this rapid escalation. They sneak through the woods, find an axe, use it to take out a red-hooded rider, steal the guy's black steed, and literally ride into a Victorian village square just in the nick of time. Tom is tied to a pole, seconds away from being burned at the stake. Toivo swings that axe like a raging Viking, slices the ropes, pulls Tom onto the horse, and they just gallop full speed toward the sea. Which brings us to our final act, Part 5, the Divine Deliverance, the apocalyptic climax. As they flee that cursed village and hit the dark seashore, the sheer scale of what they're up against becomes completely overwhelming. The forest is just echoing with bone horns, and this massive swarm of enemies converges on them all at once. We're talking spider-like vampires, hairy naked werewolves, the surviving cultists, and the underground demons. Our heroes are forced to dive into the freezing ocean waves, fully cornered, and it really looks like game over. But right when they are about to be devoured, the genre shifts again, and we get massive, literal divine intervention. Remember Tom's jewelry from way back? His blue pearl ring suddenly starts glowing. Out of nowhere, bright angels dive straight down from the sky, grab the characters underwater, and yank them into this massive lightning bolt. This bolt shoots them out of the ocean, blasts them across the universe, and drops them at a heavenly sky gate. They're instantly dressed in glowing jeweled outfits and reunited with loved ones in paradise. I mean, we went from brutal dark fantasy to heavenly sky gates in about 5 seconds. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the narrative hits us with one final, incredibly grandiose visual. The Messiah arrives on a glowing cross, riding right across the surface of the sea with white riders, to pass ultimate fiery judgment on that swarming heap of bloodsuckers trapped on the shoreline. And that brings a swift, apocalyptic end to the cursed island of Tooth Cavity. A single strike of an iron scepter into the sea triggers a catastrophic mudslide. It completely swallows those sharp mountains, the Hotel of Doom, and every last monster. The chaotic storm just abruptly stops. The black clouds part, and the whole explainer wraps up on this dead calm, red glowing sunrise. So it leaves us with this really fascinating question about the dreamlike logic of bizarre fiction. How does a story transition so flawlessly from scanning for holograms on an airplane to fighting vampires with lighter fluid to a biblical world-ending mudslide? It is a huge testament to the unbridled, rule-breaking creativity you find in internet folklore. I hope breaking this down gave you a good feel for the wild mechanics of this narrative. It really makes you wonder, what other bizarre, genre-bending stories are hiding out there just waiting to be unpacked? Keep questioning, keep digging, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.